Okay, we're live. Hi, this is Charlie Zeiss with Stargate Pyramids, and this is Pyramid Quest for April 20th, 2020. Joining me today is Lisa Richards and Lori Sasson. Bill McKenzie's not going to be with us today, but we have a really packed show today. We're going to be starting the first of what could be a multi-week session on some material that we just hinted about last week on Solfeggio Frequencies and Vortex mathematics. And we've got a lot to say over the next few weeks about this topic. But before we begin, I've got a couple of other things that we want to do, not the least of which is to have Lisa talk about the results that we had from the test on her new Apex platform from last week. So I'm going to open up the screen and we can get started here. Before we talk about the results, though, I'd like to show you some photos that I was sent about 2 weeks ago of a pyramid that one of the listeners has built. I'll read to you the information up top. It says, "Hi, Charlie. My name, if I pronounce these incorrectly, I apologize. Iwana Pavlovska. My friend Beata Hasten was guided to build a pyramid, and we used your directions on how to build it." And for those of you who may not be familiar, on the Stargate Pyramids YouTube page, you can go down and you'll see a section on how to build your own pyramid for under $30. There's a video that takes you from start to finish. And this is one of the pyramids that was built pursuant to those instructions. But it says, to finish up, she was then guided to color it according to the colors of the chakras and to put symbols of chakras in the flower of life. Her guides asked to share it with other people, and that's why I'm sharing this with you today. I think it's just beautiful. It's important that people know about it and have them. I'm sending you pictures so you can see it for yourself. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm trying to get Iwana on the show. We've been talking by email, but I did want to get back to you or get these out today and show you. This is on the left, a picture of essentially the unadorned pyramid. And then on the right, here it is in a nice setting with lights. And you can see I've got some close-ups here that there are flower of life symbols and also symbols of each of the chakras. You can see she's also made a series of stacked pyramids out of paper, similar to what we've done from previous episodes. So here's a close-up of this pyramid, and you can see that at each position, for each chakra, she's put up a flower of life symbol. And as I go in for even a closer view, you can see that there are little, it looks like decal labels for each of the chakra symbols. I believe that's what they are. Lisa and Lori, you may help me out on that. But this is just beautiful. And
it is gorgeous.
Yeah, I wanted to show each of you about that. This is the creativity. I am so amazed at the creativity of the people who watch the show and their ability to take these ideas and use them in their own unique ways. So I'm hoping that we can have one or both of these two individuals on the show to talk about this in greater detail in the next few weeks. I also wanted to read you an email I received recently from a recent purchaser of one of the pyramids. It says, "I don't know if you in the forum have shared Shungite, a 2 billion-year-old rock that has fullerenes that purify water, that is a carbon conductor of electricity, inhibits EMFs, electromagnetic fields. By placing Shungite in front of a microwave, it will block the radiation. I tested it with a portable radio set on a non-station giving off the carrier sound. I have the disc Shungite pendants hanging all over the house, off pull cords for the fans and lights. hanging in front of the computer and TV, and it inhibits EMF. I started this because the electric company, using remote access to our power source to turn off and on our air conditioner. We live in the high desert of Southern California. The offer was to stop brownouts and blackouts, regulating peak power usage. Well, I didn't like the signal beaming through the house. So guess what we did? We put solar on the roof. More electricity over my head. I don't like the Wi-Fi, and so on and so forth. I find solace in your pyramid. Maybe Lisa or the others can do a show on the fullerenes with all that talent available. Thanks for the compliment. Anyway, thank you for the gracious offer with the new pyramid. It should hold everyone. This person had ordered a medium pyramid and was wondering if I could, what she's talking about. Her husband is a little bit larger and he needed a bigger pyramid, so she'd written me to see if she could, if I could send her extenders or something. Well, the next day before I even got back to her, she'd ordered a new one, and I had already made a decision that I was going to give her a discount on the second one, so I went ahead and did that, and that's what she's talking about here.
It's funny, once you have it, once you've tried it, you need more.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And real quick, Charlie, Shungite's also, it's a very strong purifying, cleansing, and detoxifying stone as well. It doesn't just protect you from EMFs, but it protects you from psychic attacks. It's actually detoxifying to your body in a lot of ways. Some people put Shungite in their water and drink their water every day as well.
That's right.
And I actually have a man who is going to, he gets his Shungite directly from Russia because he's from Russia. And he's getting me some Russian mini Shungite pyramids that I can place those in the center of my capstones. So I'll be offering those pretty soon as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, amazing.
I've had a lot of requests for Shungite. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So before we continue on as well, I wanted to go over, during the pandemic, we are all offering various discounts and services. So, if you want to order a pyramid to review, you get $30 off any meditation pyramid. Use Corona 30 at checkout at stargatepyramids.com. Lori is offering free healing sessions. You can contact her at psychicomaha.com. Lisa is ordering healing sessions as well. When you order a capstone, you can do that through stargatepyramids.com. Or Lisa, is there a better way? I know you're rebranding. Or is that good?
It's fine. Yeah, just tell them to, go into your website will be the easiest. That takes them right to my Etsy page for now. I'm still working on my website, so
okay.
Etsy's the easiest way for me.
Okay.
Yep.
And then finally, Marza Millar, who's been on the show in the past, is offering discounts on healing products as well. So go to sacredearthmedicinals.com. So with that, we're going to, before we begin talking about Vortex mathematics, I wanted to give Lisa a few minutes to go over the results of the extensive testing that we did last week with the new Apex amplifier. So Lisa, take it away.
Yeah, so we did a lot of great testing, a lot of readings last week. I know we took up a little more time than intended because Charlie really wanted to get into this topic today. So it
all worked out perfectly, and don't you worry, I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. Okay, good. But I'll actually put a link to this if anybody wants to download this for themselves. We'll put a link in the comment section or in the description of the video after the show. But it has all the readings from Lori and Bill when we were testing the Apex amplifier platform that, if you can see up here, my new Apex amplifier. So it sits about a foot down from the top of the pyramid to enhance the energy, because that's what we discovered. It enhances the energy when things are placed right below the apex. And so I'm not going to go over all the readings, but the most important findings that we have when we utilize magnetic energy as well as the intuitive design capstone for one of the tests. And when the south side of the magnet was facing up on the Apex amplifier platform, it created a downward vortex which worked on abundance and success for myself. And that could possibly be, from what Lori was understanding, it could possibly be for all women. We were kind of finding that when she tested Bill, the energy was different and worked on a different side of his body. The masculine or female side of the body was changed between Bill and I. And so that's one of the findings. When the south side was up, sorry, when the south side was up at the apex on the amplifier, it created an upward vortex for Bill, which also worked on abundance and success, but also on his lungs. So that could actually be possible for other males as well. These are some of the things that we're going to have to do more in-depth studying on, and that's why we created the Pyramid Science Foundation. And these are some of the tests that we're going to get more in-depth on. Another one of the findings really was the north and south side of the magnet at the apex. They both have beneficial properties, but they work on different elements for different people. So you just have to kind of play around with it and see what's going to benefit you the most. You can really feel a difference, which is what I was telling people during the readings. Is I could really feel a difference when we switch over the magnet at the top, and really depending on where you place the magnet, but it really was more powerful right on the platform on the apex amplifier. And the main thing we discovered was the most powerful way to use the apex amplifier is in combination with your intuitive design capstone. And that's the one where you would send me a picture and I would intuitively design a capstone that you need for your specific healing at this time. Different crystals, different colors, create different frequencies. And so I would create a frequency just for you that's going to be specific just for you. So when you use that intuitive design capstone in combination with the magnets facing north up, that's going to be the most powerful for you. And the magnets I was using were 2,500 Gauss neodymium magnets, so they're pretty powerful. But that's all I have.
Okay,
Awesome.
fantastic. And I'm amazed at how much progress we've made since we started showing this or starting this show in amplifying the energy fields of these pyramids. It's just amazing to me. So the research continues, and it's going to always be an ongoing process. But Lisa, thanks for doing all that work, and
yes.
tell people again how they can get
the reading.
how we can all get an Apex amplifier. Tell people how to do that.
Yeah, they're on sale now on my website. So just go to Charlie's website, stargatepyramids.com, and it'll take you right to my Etsy store when you click on the custom capstone link. Or if you just want to go on Etsy, I'm just in the middle of rebranding. I switched over from Flower of Life Energy Healing, so now I'm called the Fifth Element Frequency. So Fifth Element Frequency on Etsy, and you'll find me. Okay,
fantastic. Okay, well, this is going to start, as I said, what I think is going to end up being several weeks of mathematics. And I don't want anyone to be concerned when I say mathematics, because this is not difficult math. We're going to learn new math in the sense that we're going to learn the math of numerology, which is essentially base 9 mathematics. It's not hard at all, but it does require that you think differently about addition and subtraction. And we're going to be going through all of that. But I wanted to start this with a quote that I read yesterday from on GW Hardin's website. And we're going to be talking about him quite a bit over the next few weeks, because I think this encapsulates what all this mathematics is going to lead us to. Life itself has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. It is a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. And you're saying, what does this have to do with mathematics and with the creative process? But what you're going to find over the next few weeks is that there is a creative process. It is mechanistic, it's mechanical, and the thing that drives this creative process is us. We are literally the creators of our experience. And what we're going to be learning is the way that nature makes that possible. So
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
just trying to make this, where are we going with all of this? That's what we're going to be talking about. So hang in there. You're going to start to see how important this is as we proceed. But believe me, this is not just an exercise to learn a new way to add and subtract. This is truly the pathway and the mechanism that the leading quantum physicists in the world have put together, and the pyramid ties perfectly into this process. I've been spending almost all of my time over the last week, 2 weeks really, researching both Vortex mathematics as well as GW Hardin's information on Solfeggio frequencies, and they fit together like a glove. So I can't wait to get started.
Charlie, just to kind of, say something here. What I think is amazing, we are having fun, enjoying the pyramids, doing fun little things with pyramids. And it leads us to one other location where somebody has studied this and done this for life. And what I love about GW Hardin says all the time, we're miraculous beings. We are simply miraculous. And somehow, some way we lose sight and track of that. And, one thing I really loved in one of his books that he wrote, he said, you want to be happy and you want to be successful in your life. Trust yourself, trust yourself, trust yourself. Well, what happens is we get outside of that. We believe what other people say instead of our own intuition and getting into our own existence, our own creator, our own being. And this is what I love about this, because mathematically, it tells you exactly what it means and how to get there. So this is so exciting. And once again, it just tells you what this pyramid is doing for you, for me, for Lisa, for Bill, for people that are watching the show. We just started having fun with this, knowing that it was important, that it was a great tool, but it's leading us further and further to wonderful things that are going to be healing, that'll be, purposeful for your life and meaningful, and help you in so many ways that it's limitless.
That's right. So and what's fascinating, of course, for those of you who know me, I love to get into the math and the geometry and all that stuff. And Lisa and Lori each find, that relate to this information in different ways. So just to give you background before we begin, I had a discussion with GW early last week. I got on the phone with Lori and with Tom about this last week. And anyway, all of us are now going to be back on with another conference call with GW Hardin this week. I'm sure we're all going to have questions that are going to be unique based upon the way we are being attracted to this information. But he has information that ties together with the unified field theory. As it turns out, it ties in with the pyramid, which ties into the torus. This all just works, and the various realms that we can access using all of these tools for our own benefit. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to give an introduction to Vortex mathematics, which is the work of Marco Rodin. And I'm just going to give you some basics here before we begin. There is a numerical and geometric system that accurately describes the creative process from the galactic to the subatomic. And this system is based not on our traditional base 10 mathematics, but upon base 9 mathematics, which some of you are used to calling numerology. The system is infinitely scalable, both larger and smaller, up and down scaling. The numbers 1 through 9 are used, but the numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5, which we'll show you, are all part of a continuous loop which creates the path of the infinity sign. And this infinity loop will be demonstrated to provide the structure of the torus, which is the essential ingredient in Nassim Haramein's unified field theory, which in my view is the most complete and accurate depiction our unified field theory that we have on the planet today. Now the remaining numbers, 3, 6, and 9, which are all important in solfeggio frequencies, play a separate but vitally important role in ordering these pathways and providing the pathway for energy flow within the system. Now that's what we're going to talk about today. And then starting next week, after we've had a second opportunity to talk with GW Hardin, we're going to start talking about solfeggio frequencies. And just to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing there, there's a matrix of solfeggio frequencies, a unique set of frequencies with very specific numerical properties. Now, we have been using only one of 9 sets, as it turns out, of solfeggio frequencies in our healing practice to date. And that's one of the things that I found so fascinating. GW Hardin has put together information from a number of different sources and has tied this together with his own experiences with the angelic realm. I know Lori has had a chance to start reading some of this, and maybe she has information, which I don't on that, but we'll be bringing that into the discussion over the next few weeks. And these frequencies literally provide the keys to the kingdom. Literally, they are the gateways, the pathways to health, harmony, manifestation of desires, and access to other dimensions. These frequencies are based upon the very same base 9 or vortex mathematics developed independently by Marco Rodin. And these frequencies, when used in conjunction with intention, provide the mechanism for changing literally every aspect of our existence. And I put the next one in highlights here. The geometry of the Stargate Russian geometry pyramid, which equates to the phi scaling angle, can be reduced or changed to base 9 vortex mathematics, and then is in turn found in all aspects of creation, perhaps most importantly in the microtubules of our DNA. And we're going to get into that in much greater detail and why that's significant in coming weeks. In addition to the mathematically proven ability of the pyramid, capstones, crystals, etc., that we've been using to amplify and enhance these frequencies and results, there are also other devices that Hardin discusses, such as coils, which are based upon vortex mathematics that we're going to be discussing and experimenting with over the coming weeks to further enhance the pyramid's ability to provide these benefits. So we're going to be studying all of this, testing these frequencies and technologies in the coming weeks and months. I think from what I have read, and Lisa, Lori's, and I'm sure Tom's feelings on this as well, we may be doing classes on this work. I think it's that important. And I'm going to be showing you some information about GW's work before we get started and some classes that he's doing, because I think this has the potential to be groundbreaking information and technology, both for health, personal well-being, and psychic enhancement. So again, we had this slide up last week. This is one of 2 websites that GW Hardin maintains. This one's called Sounds of Wonder. It has a lot of interesting information on it. You'll see that here there's a subhead called Solfeggio. If you go in there, you're going to find a number of videos and articles. We're going to be using a lot of these as the basis for discussion. There's some wonderful information on this website. So if you have time and are really interested in this topic, we're going to be using this information for the basis of the discussions over the next coming weeks. So you may want to go online and look at that ahead of time. GW is also offering a class. He just finished one called A Course in Wonders, which in course one, I think he covered a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be covering over the next couple of weeks, probably in greater detail than I will be able to. But he's going to be starting a class in May called A Course in Wonders 2, Healing Codes for a Better Life. We're going to be talking to him more about it this week, but I told him that I wanted to alert our listeners to this. Here's some information about it. You can go either to soundsofwonder.com to register for this, or to gwhardin.com, which is his other website here. So you can go either place and access this. I'm going to take the course, and I think Lori might be interested as well. So think about doing that and consider it. You'll have time even next week after our first class on Solfeggio Frequencies to make that decision, but keep that in mind as we proceed on. So now I'm going to start with this information. This is from an article that I found on scribed.com on vortex-based mathematics. I promised and failed to do so last week. I will put this on my website for download. If you have a Scribed subscription, you can get one for free for 30 days, scribd.com. There is just an infinite amount of information about vortex-based mathematics and Marco Rodin. So you can download this article as well at that site. But anyway, this is where most of the information that we're going to be going over today is coming from, notes on vortex-based mathematics. I think we went over last week a little bit about Marco Rodin, so I'm going to skip over that. I do want to read these again, these quotations from Marco. They are, I think, important for people to understand. Numbers are technology. The universe is a machine. I know that it does not sound very spiritual, but once you understand what this is really saying, you realize how spiritual the universe actually is, because spirit itself is mechanical and spirit is harnessable. And what does that mean? As we're going to find out in GW Hardin's work, spirit is literally our intention and our beliefs becoming our reality. So it is. Well,
and very, very quickly, science has come out with quantum physics, and that's such a big thing lately. That is the big science. And there is a video on GW Hardin's website of scientists, and it's got Neil Tyson deGrasse talking to another scientist, and he says, this is very odd for me because I'm wondering if I'm stuck in the matrix because the universe uses ones and zeros.
That's right.
He is so confused by that, but it gets into detail and depth about it. But it makes more sense that it's used this way than anything once you've learned it and once you understand it.
That's right. And of course, what we'll find is that there, in base 9 mathematics, there really isn't a zero. It is the all that is. It's the point in the, it's the 0 point literally inside the torus. But that's right. This is what you're going to find out about vortex mathematics, is that it is a 3-dimensional, can take into account time, method of defining creation. So with that said, one last time, what I would suggest for those of you who after this class want more information, go to Marco Rodin's YouTube page. You see it here. If you look at the created playlists, I think I mentioned last week, the one in the middle that says 43 of videos. This was something he did about 20 years ago and lasts about 4.5 hours. The one on the left, which I would recommend now that I have had a chance to watch it myself. This is his most recent. Marco does not give very many talks anymore. He gave this at last year's Conscious Life Expo, where I was talking as well. Didn't even know he was there. He came at the last minute and spoke on Monday after the conference was already over. But this is a 2.5-hour version of his work, and it is probably the best, most concise explanation of his work. So if you want more information, go there. Also on Scribed, SCRIBD.com, you can get a copy of his book, Aerodynamics. I have not begun that yet, but that's a rather lengthy book that he wrote some time ago about vortex-based mathematics. So we're going to start now. This was a slide we showed last week of what Marco calls the mathematical fingerprint of God. And just by way of background, Marco is a very spiritual person. He is a member of the Baha'i faith, and he originally started to determine this information by trying to determine the numerical equivalent of the holy name of God. So just know that he's coming at all of this through spirituality. So this diagram is called the fingerprint of God, and this is the crux of much of the work and the means by which number patterns can be introduced and applied to understanding this complex system called vortex mathematics. To go back and look again, what this is at what we would normally call the 12 o'clock position on the clock is the number 9. And around the circle, we have the numbers 1 through 9 equally spaced. Now you're going to see that, as I mentioned earlier, the numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5 all have a line that continues to, it's a repeating pattern. We'll get into that in a minute. You'll see that the numbers 9, 6, and 3 are not part of that loop, and you'll understand as we go through the process why not. But in this mathematics, or in this diagram of the creative process, 9 is considered to be the source of all information. And we're going to see how this is a very simplistic two-dimensional diagram of the creative process. So we're going to be expanding this once we get some basic concepts down into a three-dimensional diagram as we move forward. And in the center, you can see there is a 0 here, or a hole, which is the vortex inside the torus. For those of you who are familiar with that, this is the infinite point of creation, where energies are sucked in and then immediately are spewed back out and fold back upon this system in a continuous spiraling vortex called a torus. So now what I want to do is to start to acquaint you with some of the basic properties that Marco found in this base 9 mathematics. And again, we don't use a 0 in base 9 mathematics, and you'll begin to see how and why we convert to base 9 without a 0 as we move forward. But this first diagram is what's called the concept of the doubling circuit. And what does that mean? That means that let's start with the number 1. And if we double 1, as you'll see, the arrow moves in the line to the number 2. And we double 2, and it doubles to 4. Similarly, 4 times 2 is 8. And now here's where base 9 begins to come in. If we double 8, we're used to seeing 16. And if you look down in the column on the left, 8 doubled is 16. But for those of you who are familiar with numerology, reduction, implosion, it's called a lot of different things. The way you reduce that to a two-digit number is to take and add together the 1 and the 6, and you get the number 7. So when you use base 9 mathematics, 16 reduces to 7. Similarly, when you double 16 to 32, you add 3 and 2 together, you get 5. And then when you double 32, you get 64. And if you add 6 and 4 together, you get 10, drop the 0, and you're back to 1 again. So you can keep doing this pattern ad infinitum, and I'll show you that on the next page here. And you are going to find that there is a repeating pattern when you double any of those numbers that are in this cycle. You get a constant flow of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. And then it repeats again, starting at 64. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, and so forth. Now, for those of you who are familiar with things like cell division and things like that, we know that there's always a doubling cycle that goes on, but that 64 is kind of a magic number, even in biology. It's at the 64 cell level in the egg that we, as I understand it, you begin to see differentiation of cells in the egg. And so there's a significance to this pattern. If you go back and you continue this pattern again, you get to 4096 and so forth down the line. But the key takeaway here is that 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 is a pattern that repeats indefinitely when you're doubling numbers in this sequence. Now, interestingly enough, when you go, you might say, well, all right, that explains a cycling system when things are growing, but what about if you wanted to make things smaller from a certain point in size? Well, you find out that the circuit works just the same when you reverse and try to halve things, which is fascinating. And I'll explain how that works. Again, if you start at the number 1 and you divide that and you use the decimal system, you end up with 0.5. And so you go back to the number 5. If you have 0.5, you come up with 0.25. And once again, if you add 2 and 5, you end up back at the number 7. 0.25 halved is 0.125. And again, adding those digits up, you end up at 8. 0.125 halved is 0.0625, which brings you back to 4, and so forth. And if you did the same thing, you'd end up back at 2 and at 1. So using the decimal system in base 10, you can reduce things by halves, and you have a reverse of this very cycle that we saw that went in the opposite direction when you were growing. So this vortex mathematics can be used both for growing an object, say outside, from the point, and again, look at the center here where those lines are crossing. That's the vortex point in the torus. Things can grow outward, or they can come in and be reduced in size through the halving circuits and the doubling circuits. So these are very, very important concepts as we begin to structure a three-dimensional methodology for defining the universe with numbers. Now here's another important aspect, which is a little bit more challenging to understand, but when you look at the powers of 10, you're going to find that this methodology can be used for exactly the same in the same way. So, for example, if you start with 1, and 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 10 is 10. But when you divide, let me see how this works. 5 times 2 is 10. You get down to the number 5 in conjunction with 2. You then go back to 0.25, which is the 7 position here. That's 4 times 5, which, yeah, this is hard for me even. But, and I'm gonna admit I'm not up to speed on this, but I'm gonna go back and look at this some more. But when you go through and listen to the videos that Marco does, what you find is that the reason for our 3, you know that we put commas between every 3 sets of numbers. As it turns out, there's a reason for that in Vortex based mathematics, because this will show you that a 10 and 100 and 1,000 go here, then 10,000 and 100,000 go here, and this process continues on such that you end up with a line of 10s with lists of 3 zeros. Here you end up with a line of 100 in multiples of 3 zeros, and here you have a line of 1s with zeros as factors as well. So these are methods of scaling through the use of additional zeros. So not to get into this in great detail, but this shows as well that there is a scaling factor here that goes into this mathematics as well, and can take us from infinity down to subatomic levels. Now, we haven't talked about the number 9 yet, but the number 9 is what Marco Rodin defines as self-similar. And what that means is that if you multiply 9 by 1, you get 9. If you multiply 9 by 2, you get 18. And again, if you reduce that, you get the number 9, and so forth up the scale as you continue. Whenever you multiply 9 by itself, you're always going to get a reduction of the number 9. So 9 is self-similar and never changes, and it's never reducible. So that becomes an important concept in vortex-based mathematics. Now, 3 and 6, on the other hand, are not part of the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 sequence, but are kind of a unique subset in and of themselves. If you double 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, so you end up with 6. 6 times 2 is 12, so when you reduce that, you're back to 3. And 12 times 2 is 24, so you reduce that back to 6. So what you're seeing is that the 3 and 6 in vortex-based mathematics bounce back and forth. And if you multiply multiples of 6 and 3, like if you multiply 6 times 3, you get 18, which reduces to 9. So when you multiply 6 and 3 together, you end up with 9. So this is kind of like a separate number system unto itself, separate and distinct from the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 series that we talked about before. And as I mentioned, we just talked about that. If you double 3, you get 6. You double 6, you get 12. You're back to 3. Double to 24, 6 and 3. So these bounce back and forth between each other, halving and doubling. And the same thing with halving. 6 divided by 3 is 3. 3 divided in half is 1.5, which is 6. So it works in both directions as well. 1.5 divided by 2 is 0.75, which brings you back to 3. So no matter whether you're doubling or halving, 3s and 6s are always bouncing back and forth between each other. Another aspect of this mathematics is what's called 3 and 6 oscillation, which we talked about. But if you look at what's interesting, if you combine the numbers in one direction on this circle, you see that 8 and 7 equal 15, which is 6. 9 and 6 is 15, which is 6. 1 and 5 is 6. And 2 and 4 is 6. And that's leaving the 3 out. When you leave the 6 out of the diagram and you add those together, 7 and 5 is 12. 8 and 4 is 12. 9 and 3 is 12. And 1 and 2 is 3. So all of these will reduce down to 3. So there's some interesting patterns there as well. Now, I'm going to show you another characteristic of vortex mathematics, which is a concept called the doubling mirrors. First of all, let me stop and see if there's any questions that people have on the stuff that I've covered so far, because I know
they have lots.
Yeah, so let's stop and take some questions. Let's see. Bradwick is saying Leonard Horowitz promoted 528, which is not a true sacred frequency. Actually, I'm going to be showing you in coming weeks that is a sacred frequency. So I'm going to hold that question until we get into the solfeggio frequencies as we go forward. 428 and 532 are all part of this. This is what we know is only one, what we are familiar with is only one of 9 solfeggio frequency. They're called skeins or seeds that are out there. So a lot of these questions are probably getting ahead of where we need to be right now. But again, to get back to some of the concepts in vortex mathematics, I'm going to explain. You remember that in the circle, 9 is at the top of this circle, and you see that it's missing here, and there's a reason for that. We're going to show that there are some other special properties of this model that split the diagram vertically in half, where the number 9 would normally show up. And that's why that is not showing up on this doubling mirror. So here's some other very interesting properties about this circle. Let's start off with the number 1. This is, if we double number 1, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 3 is 3. That's a pretty straightforward process. So you can see that as we go from 1 to 9, when we use 1 as our base, that nothing has really, we've just got a numerical sequence. Similarly, when we double 2, multiply it, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 5 is 10, and that's reduced to 1. 2 times 6 is 12, which reduces to 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 times 7 is 14, which reduces to 5, 16 to 7, and 18 to 9. And then similarly at the bottom, we're going to see, I hope everybody can see that, 2 times 4, 1 times 4 is 1, 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12, reducing to 3, and so forth on that scale. 4 times...
You can see it.
Yeah, can you see it? Okay, I had to move it for me to see it. So 4 times 4 is 16, reduces to 7. 4 times 5 is 20, reduces to 2. 24 reduces to 6. 30, excuse me, 4 times, let's see, where am I here? 24. I lost my train here. 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 28. Oh, 28, that's right, would reduce to 1, sorry. Then 32 would reduce to 5, and 36 to 9. Sorry about that. So now let's go over and do the same thing on the other side of this model. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, which reduces to 7. 24 reduces to 6. 32 to 5. 40 to 4. 48 would be 4 plus 8, or 12, which reduces to 3, and so forth down the line. Similarly, 5 times 1 is, or 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. Reduces to 5, 21 reduces to 3, and so forth. So you can continue and do that. But now let's look at the relationship between this series and this series, the 1 and the 8 series. You're going to find that it is the mirror image of the other. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these are literally mirror images of each other. The same thing is true with the 7 and 2. If you take the 9s away, you've got 7, 5, 3, 1, 8, 6, 4, 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 3, 5, 7. These are mirror images of each other in each case. And that's going to become important in developing a 3-dimensional model of space and time based upon this, because 2s and 7s, 8s and 1s, and 4s and 5s will have specific importance in terms of when you start to think of X, Y, and Z axes to come up with a 3-dimensional layer. You're going to see.
You know what this tells me? When
What's
I look
that?
at something like this and we're going through this, which you're doing an excellent job, is that everything's a pattern. So, you know, a lot of people go, I don't believe in psychic ability. Well, really what I do is I look at the patterns. I get the energy of what patterns are going on in the universe. And that's how I know what I know. So this is really showing how patterns work and how patterns come from people, and, you know, patterns match patterns, or, you know, magnetic pole matches, you know, other magnetic poles, right?
Absolutely. And it can all be done within the framework of this 9-digit mathematic system called base 9. So you're absolutely right. So here's just another idea to think about. Another way of adding up adjacent, that should say numbers, within the doubling circuit. If you add up 1 and 2, you get 3. 4 and 5, you get 9. And 6 and 7, you get 6.
All right, Charlie, I'm just going to let you know, we just see a green screen right now. I'm not sure what you're trying to show us here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there we go. You're back. Okay, there we have 2 circles and a
Yeah.
768. Okay. All right.
Ah, isn't that funny? I was seeing it, you weren't. Isn't that anyway? So now I hope you're seeing two circles here. And one of the things that we talk about is adding up adjacent numbers within the doubling circuit. So depending on where we start in this process, if we start at the number 1 and add 1 and 2 together, we get 3. If we add 4 and 5 together, we get 9. And if we add 7 and 8 together, we get 6. So we'll see at the bottom, we have a system of 3, 9, and 6. But if we start with 4, for example, 2 and 4, we get 6. If we add 8 and 1, we get 9. And if we add 7 and 5, we get 3 for a different configuration, but again, using 3 6s and 9s of 6, 9, and 3. I don't want to confuse everyone, but you may remember several weeks ago, when we were looking at solfeggio frequency octaves, I was doing the math and I was noticing these very interesting patterns depending upon the octave of 3 6s and 9s that were showing up when we reduced or imploded the solfeggio frequencies. So this is an important thing, again, an important factor. The pulsation of the 3 and 6 within an axis of 9 makes a sequence of what's called 3 6 9, 6 9 3, 3 9 6. And this is going to be something that we're going to be looking at as we continue our exploration here. But that's important. And it says, and this is an important concept in vortex mathematics, in this sequence, the 3 is never next to the 6. It is always separated by a 9. And you need to think of these as repelling each other like the two ends of a magnet. So we'll keep that in mind. Now, as we're getting close to what is going to be the end of our discussion today, but I want to start to formulate the grid that Marco Rodin has put together. We're going to start that first as a two-dimensional grid, and we're going to try to go through that on this page. As you remember, we came up with these doubling circuits from our diagram earlier. When we're going forward, we double with a 1 2 4 8 7 5, which is a repeating function with those 6 numbers. Now, another way to look at that, the way Rodin develops his grid is to look at the doubling circuit going in reverse in the other direction. We'll talk about the middle numbers in a second. But what Rodin is saying essentially in this diagram, remember that Marco Rodin is known most for the Rodin coil. The Rodin coil is an electrical coil which is a free energy device. He has harnessed the ability, perhaps more efficiently than virtually any coil, and as far as I know, better than any coil, by using this grid of numbers that we're beginning to formulate. Now, the top doubling circuit, visualize that as one wire going to the left, and the doubling circuit on the bottom as being a separate wire, electrical wire going in the opposite direction. And now try to visualize that in the context of it having squares on it. But you'll see that there's current in the coil. There would be current running to the left in the doubling circuit on the top, and there would be current running in the doubling circuit wire on the bottom. But in the middle is an empty or free zone or free space. And this is where in his grid the numbers 6, 9, 3, 3, 9, 6 appear. And as we've seen, that is a separate circuit, separate and distinct from the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 circuit that we developed before. And I know we're going through a lot of stuff here in a hurry today, so we're only going to try to get the basics. But essentially, that two-dimensional diagram is then used to scale this simplistic grid into a three-dimensional pattern of numbers, which eventually develops the torus that you see on the right-hand side of the page. So I'm going to try to guide you very quickly through how this is developed. If we look to the very center where my cursor is, we're going to go down diagonally from the number 1, which I hope you can see I'm pointing to with my cursor here. That very doubling circuit that we developed earlier, starting with the number 1, goes 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, and then it ends, but it would continue 7, 5. So we see in this diagonal line that there is a doubling, this doubling circuit that we showed before. Now, if you look 2 columns to the left, or excuse me, two rows over to the right, you're going to see that same doubling circuit, but you're going to see it going in the opposite direction. If we go down here to a 1 that I'm pointing at now, you'll see it going 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. In the middle, we're going to see the 3, 6, 9 circuit that we talked about before, the 3, 6, 9, 6, 9, 3, 3, 9, 6, 6, 9, 3. So Marco spends hours and hours developing this. So we're not going to be able to go through all of this and have you get a full grasp of all of the complexities and the amazing number sequences that you'll get out of this. But one of the things that I do want to point out very simplistically, I'm pointing right now at the 9 in the very center of this grid. Now you'll see that these grids are highlighted in 3 by 3 segments, because these are the numbers 1 through 9 in this grid. Now, one of the fascinating ideas here, and this will give you at least a glimpse of how scaling is done with this grid. If you take the number 9 as the center and you add up all of the numbers that touch or abut the number 9, and you reduce it in base 9 mathematics, you're going to end up with that very number itself. So let me do that for you quickly so you'll get the concept. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10, which reduces to 1. 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 plus 7 is 16, which reduces to 7. 7 plus 5 is 14, which reduces to 5. 5 plus 6 is 9. I must have made a mistake. 9, let me see. I think I did that wrong. Let's see. 3, 7, 1, 9, 9 and 7, 16, 7, 22, that's 4. They all add up to 9 when you do the reduction. And so let me try this again, because I think I messed it up. But they will all sum to 9. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10, reduces to 1. 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 plus 7 is 16, so that's 7. 7 and 5 is 12. That'll reduce to 3. That's right. And 3 plus 1 is 9. And that adds up to 9. I forgot I'd started with 1. Okay. Sorry if I mixed you guys up, but that's the way it works. We'll do it one more time, say with the 3 in the middle here, and go around this 3 and add up the numbers. 4 plus 3 is 12, which reduces to 3. 3 plus 7 is 10, which reduces to 1. 1 plus 9 is 10, which reduces to 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 8 is 15, which reduces to 6.
Charlie, I think you thought that that 8 was a 3. So right after the 4 is an 8.
Oh, I went on the wrong, didn't I? I did. Sorry. All right, let's let me find another one where there aren't adjacent numbers to mess me up. Let's do this 7 over here. 8 plus 4 is 12, which is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 10, which is 1. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 9 is 16, which reduces to 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. Oh, that's right. Okay.
No.
Did I mess it up again? I think so. Anyway, if you do this for any, if you do this, I'm not going to bore you guys with this, but if you do this yourself with this grid, any number that you put in the middle, if you add all the numbers around it, it's going to sum up to the number in that grid. And that's going to become important in developing three-dimensionality inside this coil. But basically what Rodin does from here, he takes this type of a diagram and he develops a coil around it. And so each of these spaces has a specific number and a pattern to it. And what we're not going to get into this week, but he does in his more detailed videos, is that specific numbers, like say pick a 7, you will see that there's a spiraling effect of the number 7 or the number 6 or the number 9 that spirals into the vortex. So in short verse, in base 9, using a grid pattern such as the one that he's developed, you can determine a mathematical structure of the torus, which is what Nassim Haramein uses as the basis of his unified field theory. What's very interesting as well is that this mathematics, we're going to get into this more with GW Hardin's work in coming weeks, but this was from Marco Rodin's website. The geometry of the DNA is a perfect match for the model that we developed earlier with the, and if you look down at the bottom, you'll see this golden spot here in the middle. That's the 0 point. The red line is actually the 369 field that we talked about before, which ends up being a directional component. But if you consider the top of the red line as a 9, the black space here would be a 1. This intersection would be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So it is a perfect mathematical representation even of the external structure of the DNA molecule itself. And we're going to be getting into that in much greater detail as time goes on. So to finish up for today, I just want to show you these concepts in sort of a holistic way. As we all know, torsion fields spin in a spiral, and that is what powers the pyramid as a torsion energy generator. It compresses and forces the torsion field energy up to this point in the middle or at the top of the pyramid in the middle of the vortex. Now this vortex is drawn such that the energy coming in is at the top. Actually, the way the pyramid works, it's coming from the bottom, but the concepts are exactly the same. So pyramid energy is forced up through the predominant torsion field. Energy information that is brought into the field is concentrated at this point of this 0 point, and then comes out again using the very scaling numbers that we developed, that Marco Rodin developed in his vortex mathematics model. So, you know, here's another example of this in a three-dimensional context. So that in summary is a very, very basic explanation of vortex mathematics. Here's a final slide for us to look at. Again, on this diagram, 9 is the zenith that represents all knowledge. That this is a source that all of this works through and accesses. And the point in the middle, you'll notice that there are no lines through that hole in the middle. That's just in theory. This is a point of allness or nothingness, whatever, however you want to look at it. But this is the point of creation inside this vortical field. So between the hole in the vortex and the number 9, it says, is a perfect diamond, which is also significant. So that's where we're going to stop for today in terms of discussion of vortex mathematics. As I say, there's a lot more to cover, and we may cover this in greater detail in a course in the future. But the key takeaways here that I want you all to understand is that this model, this base 9 mathematical model, is the crux of the mathematics that goes into the torus, which is the crux of the unified field theory that Nassim Haramein has developed to explain, you know, the creative process in the universe. So all of this starts with mathematics. So just to leave everybody with this thought, when we pray, when we put out intentions to the universe, you know, when I was a kid, when I prayed to God, of course, God was external to me going to church, and I didn't really understand this, but I had no conception of how my prayer would be answered, except that God would do this as a miracle of some sort, you know, something that was beyond my comprehension. And really all I'm trying to say is that at this point, we're going to start delving into this. There is a mathematical basis. There is a system which, as Lori said so adequately early in the session, this is a three-dimensional, time-inclusive method of creation that is so much further complex, so much more complex and yet more elegant than the simple 0-1 kind of approach that we use in current computer science. One of the things that Marco talks about in his talk last year is that the chief designer at Microsoft, who is a big fan of this technology, truly believes that when computer programmers realize the true elegance of this and begin programming in this kind of a field or with this kind of mathematics, the computing power of the computer is going to go up exponentially, because it's the most simplistic and elegant way of mapping the creative process in the universe. So with that, I think I'm going to stop for today.
Do you want to check out some of the messages people have been writing?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
You want me to do that?
Well, I'll look for it. I'll look for them now. Let's see what we've got. Well, let's see.
And what screen do you have on right now?
Do I have on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have on a screen that says 9 is the zenith that represents all knowledge.
Okay. Again, on the actual recording, I don't see that. I see a, oh, there we go. I do see it now. All right.
Okay. So let me see if there are any questions. Let me check here. I'm trying to get my questions up. I had that up earlier and now it's.
Well, Jorge said something about stop making copper pyramids. They do harm to living cells. Pyramids can only be made by non-ferrous material. Do the research unless you have high degree of aluminum or titanium. And then Martin says, I have difficulty understanding how it all connects with plastic pyramid tubes. And, you know, I understand that. If you happen to watch Gaia channel with David Wilcox, he talks about that pyramid in Russia. So that's where you essentially got that from, correct, Charlie?
Well, every source that I have looked at, if we're on the topic of building materials, whether it's the Russian pyramid research, our most popular video has been a comparison of the energy fields of a copper versus PVC pyramid, and there's no comparison. The law of one mentions that you shouldn't use copper. Ramtha, in their discussions of pyramids, says exactly the same thing. I have not found any piece of literature that says that base metals are good for building pyramids. None whatsoever. And yet I know that that's a common thought. And the only thing I can figure is that people have been doing it for years and nobody's ever questioned it. But every piece of research that I've seen and our own research indicates that base metals are not good for pyramids.
So LC said, hi guys, I make copper pyramids for personal use and I noticed for a 51-degree angle, there's about a 3-inch difference in base and lengths. Have you guys used 432 millimeter and 528 millimeter for the 20.08 inch length in the 17.0 inch height? So I don't know what she means by that, but maybe that's a question for you.
Well, no, I haven't. And I'm gonna try to explain again that we'll be getting into Solfeggio frequencies, both 432 and 520. Let me get it right. Yeah.
423 and 528.
420, right. 423?
Or 432 and 528.
There we go. 432 and 528 are Solfeggio frequencies, and we'll be talking about that. But frequency and geometry or measurement are two totally different things. And the geometry of this pyramid, as we'll be getting into in the work of GW Hardin, matches the geometry that's found in DNA and the microtubules. And we're getting a little ahead, but that's okay because it's an important topic. We're going to be finding, when we get into that research, that this pattern of Solfeggio ratios, when you take, you know, the I said Solfeggio, the Fibonacci sequence of 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 11, and you divide one by the other to begin getting approximations to phi, and they converge onto ultimately to this ratio 1.618. That's the ratio or the dimension when you take phi and expand it in 3 dimensions. That is the dimensionality of this pyramid. This is also the geometry of DNA and the microtubules within the DNA. Now, what we're going to be finding is that GW Hardin has found this number sequence existing in the microtubules and throughout nature in base 9. So we haven't gotten there yet, but that's going to be really important as we move forward, that concept. But again, the Giza geometry and the Russian geometry correlate. The one thing that we do know is that the base angle, the slant angle of the Russian pyramid exactly matches the apex angle of the Giza pyramid. But I'm not sure that taking the frequencies and converting them to mathematics with respect to base and length is appropriate. I'm not saying it's not, because I've never researched that. But, that's, I guess, a topic for another day. And that I'll leave it at that because I haven't researched that.
Okay.
But I don't
Martin
see
said,
that relates, off the top of my head.
Martin says the 693 angle is a pyramid such as the Nubian pyramid, ?
In a 2-dimensional diagram, that is correct. We're going to be expanding this to 3 dimensions, and this is a simplistic circle. But yeah, that's right. And when you look, however, and I think this is a really important point to make, if you think of some of the symbolism that we see in the world, the Mason symbol, for example, uses this diagram, this very diagram that's
The
up on.
The God imprint, right.
That's right. So
the fingerprint of God.
That's right. That's right.
And put the G right in the middle of that empty space that you're talking about.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So this symbology has been around and is hidden, just like everything else, hiding in plain sight. So this is knowledge that's been around for quite some time.
Fantastic.
Okay, so I hope I haven't bored everyone with too many numbers. I'm sure a lot of this is still not going to make a lot of sense until we start to tie some of these ideas together as time goes on over the next couple of weeks. But next week, we're going to take up Solfeggio frequencies. I'm going to try to explain some of the basic, show you how, both the, all of the 528, the 430, 432, all are all Solfeggio frequencies. And we'll get into that next week. Until then, as always, be sure and tell your friends about Stargate Pyramids. Take advantage of the sales that we have going on. And until next week, I thank you for watching, and you have a great day.